darkness comes and the shadows appear, when my heart is failing, gripped by crippling fear, when hopelessness is in the air and my back's against the rail, I can't talk, can't walk, mine says I've already failed. That's when I remember false appearances invading my mind, sense bases and all their projections locking me in space and time, accommodating what the day brings, free from attachment to the outcome, rest in equanimity based on true reality. I can overcome adversity, never lasts, but tough people do. If I incline my mind this way, I change my midnight entity as I remember false appearances invading my mind, sense spaces and all the projections locking me in space and time. I don't know the outcome, but my mind says it's gonna be crazy. But Dharma says, see the alternator, and it won't faze me. No, it won't faze me. To soar above conditions, watch what you think about. Work on solutions to your problems. Don't be hindered by doubt. Handling the ups and downs of life becomes a skill we master. Knowing everything is temporary dispels the darkness faster. Always remember illusion, false appearances invading my mind, sense spaces and all the projections locking me in space and time. It's just an illusion, false appearances invading my mind, sense spaces and all the projections locking me in space and time.
So I wrote that song a few months ago because I was concerned by, I began to get overly concerned about conditions that are occurring in the world. And that's when it really matters whether one has true Dharma or not, is our capacity to rightly see or to see things rightly or with right understanding, so that we understand what is going on in the world. And the world is conditioned by the mind. So each of us lives in our own world. We just all kind of here together, but each one of us has our own mind. And so we live in our own world. So it's going to be pretty difficult for all of us to come to agreement on everything all the time, or hardly anything anytime. And so how are we going to have peace in the world? That is where true Dharma comes in, is in teaching us how to see and know and understand and live in and be in the world. So we talk about, in the beginning of the Dharma, we talk about going to the other shore. You know, they have this shore and we're trying to get to the other shore. But the closer you get to understanding how the other shore operates, you recognize that the other shore is none other than this shore. So there's really nowhere to go, and there is really nothing to do. And so the good news of the Dharma, you could call it the gospel of the Dharma, the good news of the Dharma, is to let us know that there is nowhere to go and there is nothing to do. And as we begin to settle into this, we see the illusory nature of life. Illusory doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist in the way that we think it exists. The illusory nature means that it's constantly shifting and it's changing and it's based on false notions and based on false understandings. And so we don't necessarily change the things. You can come up, Bobby. Yeah. We don't necessarily change the things, but with the skillfulness and power of a transforming mind, things change. See, and where we're getting mixed up is we're constantly trying to change things and trying to fix things and trying to change people, and we're working from the tail end. And so there are some requirements that we have if we want to be skillful in how we execute in daily life so that outer conditions transform. Now, we're living in a time that there's a great need for some transformation of outer conditions, but outer conditions only transform to the extent that we ourselves transform. And that's what cause and condition is all about. There is no condition that exists in this world that is not based upon some cause. So you can't say why is this happening? We can't say this shouldn't be happening. It wouldn't be happening if the causes were not in place that produce that condition. So the first thing we have to uproot is this perplexity, being perplexed about why something is happening. If you look at what is happening, then you understand that the conditions have presented themselves, that we have put into place conditions that allow these things to happen. And that helps to at least take away the perplexity. That's part of the way towards the path to peace. That's not the whole way. That's part of the way. That part can almost be understood and accepted. But where the effort comes in is in the area of changes. If we don't like the trajectory, there needs to be a change in the trajectory. Then the effort that's required to change the trajectory may not feel so comfortable. And it feels uncomfortable due to our lack of skillfulness. But the more skillful we become, the easier it is to course correct. But becoming skillful is difficult because becoming skillful requires that we have a different understanding about ourselves, about ownership even of a self. And so we think in terms of my leg, my arm, my friends, my this, my that, my, everything it's seen through a lens of a self. Mm-hmm. And the Dharma tells us something entirely different. It says that not seeing self in this way is how we have to reorient our capacity to hold things in this world. So there's this Pannavati. She has her ways, she has her habits, she has her likes and she has her dislikes. The whole purpose of my practice is to detach from that and not make the whole world center or revolve around Pannavati and her family and her friends and the things that she likes and the things she doesn't like. That's where the effort comes in. And not too many people sign up for this because they don't see any benefit in that. So one can't even come into the Dharma, make a serious inquiry until they come to some place of dissatisfaction with the notion of me, my, and mine. Until that time, the Dharma doesn't even begin to make sense. But when we look at all the me, my, and mining, and how it brings us nothing but dissatisfaction. I mean, when we're sad or when we're sorrowful or when we're, are suffering, the mind is agitated and the mind is perturbed. But when we're happy, the mind is still agitated. So it doesn't matter whether it's on the good side or the bad side, the mind is agitated either way. But when we come to a place of perfect peace, there's just a great kind of glorious contentment, I would call it. There's a kind of ease that goes with that. And with that ease, we can accommodate something. Tough times never last, but tough people do. That's how you think about it when you're unperturbable. But when you have to depend on something out here happening for me to have my happiness, then I'm going to be at the mercy of others. I'm going to be at the mercy of this disturbed mind. And when my mind is disturbed, there's nothing I can offer. Can't offer anything to myself, can't offer anything to anybody else. And so we have to really decide then which of these truths we actually embrace, and the amount of effort it takes to begin to uproot that dissatisfaction in the mind, that fear in the mind, that unsettledness in the mind. Because when we do, we find that we can handle anything that comes our way, but not just handle it like being able to tolerate it, but we become an agent for change, that we can begin to neutralize the ingredients in the pot. We can begin to gradually change conditions. We had a very interesting Dharma discussion on Tuesday at the Tuesday class, and it was hard. It was harsh. Because the mind wants to cling so tenaciously to views that it holds. Of course, my view is the right view. We want to cling so tenaciously to it, even if that view is causing us suffering. By God, is my view. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And so when we cling tenaciously like that, we bring suffering to us. So nobody's bringing suffering. They may be doing things, they may be saying things, but not bringing suffering. But I don't have an opportunity to clearly know their mind if I'm so big into the defense of my own view. And so the Dharma gives us some space and a method of looking at things and holding things and contemplating them and putting them up against the way the ordinary mind thinks and just weighing them until one acquiesces to the other. So I can tell who's really cultivating, who's really practicing, as opposed to those who have a good memory and who can Paul parrot back something that's been said, and it's like, oh, I'm really getting this Dharma. I know it can yappa, 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 yappa. But how they go through the vicissitudes of life, how they handle the unpleasant moments, how they face tenuous situations. How is the mind running, I'm trying to share something or explain something, but person can't even hear because their mind is also talking. Not having a capacity to just suspend. I already know what I think. Whether I tell you or not, I know what I think. And so to get something else in there, I have to have the capacity to settle back and hear what you have to say. All while you talking, I'm still holding to my view. All while you talking, I'm butting in my mind. All while you talking, because me, and mine are the most important thing to me. And so this is a practice of letting go of self. That could sound pretty scary. I'm like, if I'm not for me, who is for me? That's how the world thinks. And that's why it operates, and we see the things happening in the world that we see happening. But he tells us that there is a way that we can untie these mental knots that we all have in our human condition. I've always said, if anybody thought that the human species is the highest form of sentience in all of the universe, then we're in sad shape. If this is the best that the universe could conceive of, then we're in bad shape. And so I'm always looking for something that is higher than me. Looking for something, some way of knowing, some way of being, some way of responding, some way of contributing that is higher than me. Now, I do want to look for that, but at the same time, there is me after all. So I want to cling and hold on to me. And at the same time, I want to find that higher way of responding. So the Dharma tells us, well, it begins with considering others equally with oneself. But, oh, yeah, I can do that. Except when your view doesn't align with mine. Except when there's only one of something and it's two of us. Except. That's when we are really required to put into practice what we say we believe and that we can speak about so eloquently. That's where right effort comes into play. And in the beginning, it's like teaching a child to share toys, and you buy all these toys and you're just so happy. And then a child comes in and in the beginning, when they're younger, they like give you the toys. But as they get older, like not real old, like one, and a child comes in and the toys can be there, and the child's not even thinking about toy because he's playing with this toy. But as soon as that other child picks that toy, mine, and he throws this one down and he wants this one. And it continues on from there. So by the time you get to my age, 75, my goodness, these kinds of habitual tendencies, we think it's just the normal tendency. I have to be concerned about mine, right? And this is, well, how is that working for you? If you can have something without it having you, then it's all right. If you can be with someone without owning them, then it's all right. All other things being equal. There's the other considerations too, And so he talks about this path of learning that we go through, and we begin with right understanding, and then we build upon that right understanding so that we think rightly. We have right thought. And that right thought then causes us to act in certain ways, and we have right action. And that allows us to speak in certain ways, so we have right speech. And that leads us to right livelihood. Livelihood is not just the job that we have. Don't be a butcher. I hope there's no butchers in here. I'm just saying, if so, everything at its own level. It was not a definitive dig. It's a everything has its own level and its own time and causality. You see, right? And so we have this right livelihood. Livelihood is how we live out our life on a day-to-day basis. That's what right livelihood is. Not saying one thing and doing another. Not saying one thing and thinking another. Like I thought it, I didn't do it though. I thought it, but I didn't do it. But when our thoughts and speech and action line up, that's what the Pharisees said about Jesus. They said, we got to get rid of this guy because his thoughts, his speech, and his action line up. We can't trust somebody like that. That's how bad religion had gotten. Couldn't change. He couldn't get with the politics. He couldn't change with the weather. He couldn't, the smoke in the mirrors. Couldn't do it. His thoughts, his speech, his action lined up. This guy's scary right here. We got to get rid of him. And so that takes a certain kind of effort, a kind of efforting. And that right effort leads us to be mindful of the right things. That's right, mindfulness. And that leads to right meditation, right contemplation. Of course, though, we take it the other way. We started with meditation, right? Everybody want to go to the meditation center. Everybody wants to sit and meditate. Shanti, shanti. Everybody wants to, just drop into this deep, vast space of awareness, but with the same mind, without first having gathered right understanding, so that they could think rightly, so that they could act rightly, speak rightly, have right livelihood, put forth the right effort to be mindful of the right things. Right meaning correct, meaning have a benefit that bring the current moment into a higher state, higher vibratory state of reality. For some people right now, because there's so much contention, some are preparing for war and some are hoping for peace. But we need to be preparing for peace, and that takes right understanding. We said, well, okay, you got eight things to go through, we don't have that much time. Let's just jump to the most important one. But if each one is built upon the previous, then unless we start at the beginning, and sometimes it takes that. It takes going back to beginning. Like we don't have time to keep going back. I used to say it all the time. We don't have time to keep going back. We have to finish something. We have to move forward. But sometimes retreating is advancing. When we have realized we have gone in a wrong way, in a wrong direction. And I say we, you say he went in the wrong direction. But we have to say we have gone in the wrong direction. Considering others as oneself. Not always right. But when I'm not right, I want to try to fix it. I want you telling me, I want to know it for myself and fix it for myself. But we want to tell them when they're not right. Is there some other way we could speak to the matter? As if so much shouting and fist banging is going to be that which wins. Do we think that goodness has any power at all? I say it over and over, but I keep saying it until it sinks in and it makes sense. Bad people win because they have more confidence in their badness. They think than good people have in their goodness. We think good is nice, is all of that, but we don't think good has that much power. If so, we do more good. But when we do enough good and that ain't working, we turn to doing bad. And we meet sword with sword and pistol with pistol. We completely abandon our game plan. So we have to know deeply what it is that we hold to be true. And so these practices that we think are just so unreasonable, maybe even unrealistic. Has your realism worked? Is it working in the world? It is not. And it's only at such times that we can listen to the wisdom of the sages. Now I'm not talking about a Buddhist sage, but the wisdom across the board with wise men who found a pathway to awakening, even in the midst of a world fraught with danger and sorrow. The other shore is none other than here. But it takes an elevation, a change, a shift of mind consciousness to be able to realize it. Two people can be in the same room and they hear the same thing, but when you ask them what they heard, they come up with two entirely different things, takeaways, you know. But one thing was said. So we know that it's the mind, the individual mind, that interprets what it hears and what it sees, what it tastes, what it touches, what it smells, and even interprets what it thinks. So how shall we all agree? It's not going to be possible. But yet we can establish in the mind, and have a path of progression towards being able to be unattached, non-attached, from a me, my, mine perspective. The goings on of the world. And in this way, what is a hell realm can become for me a heavenly abode. So there are a lot of things happening today. A lot of people saying a lot of things. A lot of people doing a lot of things. A lot of people not doing anything. A lot of people don't know what to do. A lot of people, so much going on. And yet my mind is steady and unperturbed because I understand causality. Maybe I only have one factor of the Eightfold Path, right understanding. But I'm encouraged, I'm excited, because if there are 8 factors and that first one brings me such a degree of peace in the moment. When the mind is perturbed, you can't hardly do anything. Something needs to be done, something needs to happen, but you can't think of what. The mind is just running in every direction, getting offended over everything, heart beating fast. But if the first factor of the path seeing things as they actually are, understanding cause and condition. That lets me know that this situation absolutely could not be present except the conditions for it to be present are here. That takes away my, why is this happening? That's the first one. And that can bring so much stability and peace in your life that you can look clearly and you can find a way of escape. But it starts with one, gathering and abiding in their own peace. So if we have the rabble rousers as our leader, as our leaders, then we should know we're not moving towards peace. There is a way that seems right to us, but all we have to do is look at the results and we can know whether it's right. It's not just a matter of saying the right words, but having the right overall attitude, the right emphasis at the right time for the right people, the right phrasing and shading that inures towards peace rather than conflict. All of those things have to be factored in. So where are you in this process? In your thoughts, in your speech, in your action? You who would lead others, where are you in this? So he says that before we can reach a place of liberation, we first have to encounter peace. And we have to know how to practice in order to have a peaceful mind. And says that if your mind is not peaceful, in spite of all that you're practicing, then you have to acknowledge that you have not realized the genuine Dharma, and that the mind is still unskilled, and the mind is unreliable, lacking in wisdom, the kind of wisdom that knows things as they are. When the mind becomes established in what's correct, then the entire progression of the path becomes correct. It becomes, it's like a river flowing. It's not jerky. We're not thrown off, not, just caught me at a bad time. It's not like that. I catch me. I see where I'm moving at any given time in the mind. If you had like, let's just say, this is a lemon, and how does a lemon taste? We could say lemon tastes sour, but this lemon doesn't taste sour until we taste it. So he says there's a way of living that you can experience what is happening without you gathering it to yourself and making it your discrimination of what it is. It's just a lemon. We don't have to apply any characteristic to it except that it tastes like a lemon. It tastes like a lemon. And this is the practice that we have to undertake. Things happening to us, things being said to us. Can't tolerate anything. Somebody accidentally cut you off and you're going to try to run them off the road. Now, road rage. We can't handle anything. We have to make a discriminating, decision about everything. No, we don't. Even if somebody cut me off deliberately. But I could assume that he cut me off accidentally. I cut somebody off accidentally one time. And, I really didn't see him, and I cut him off. And as soon as I did it, I stuck my hand out. I'm sorry, But that guy came, we were on the highway in Georgia. He came and he tried to run me off the road several times. I had to hold up my phone like calling 911 on you, and then he went off. When I held up the phone and started doing this, then he took off and he passed his exit trying to run me off the road, But can we tolerate a slight? Do we have the capacity to overlook a fault? If I don't want to play, don't participate. I don't have to stop you. I can just not participate. We have to step back and begin to consider what we want for ourselves and offer that to others. Now that runs counter to our human nature. But this is the advice of all the sages. Those who have found liberation and freedom, not out of the world. You don't need it out. You need it here while you're in the world. And he says that's that way of being in the world, but not of it. He says, try it. Well, I tried it. That didn't work good for me. Well, how is the alternative working for you? If it's not working, try something new. So walking this path will lead to peace if we walk it. That is the promise, and that is the guarantee. Now, I don't know that that's true unless I have some proofs. Blind faith doesn't work for me. But when I contemplate and think about the things that I have put into practice and what they have done for me, how they have benefited me, that gives me the encouragement to put something a little harder to accept into practice. So we start with little things, the easy things. So you say something to me and it offended me, and I go home and I think about it, tell my husband about it, a couple of friends about it. I'm still thinking about it, thinking about what I should have said, thinking about what I should have said, my retort. And fire's still burning. But if when you had said that, if I disagreed, well, decidedly that's not true, that's the end of it. That's not true. That's it. That's where the first bit of effort comes in. Not continually fighting against what you have already from the beginning decided was not true. And that is letting it go, letting it be. not continuing the narrative that's bringing pain upon pain, but just saying that wasn't true. Done with it. Not needing so much of a defense. Now, there are times when we have to take some kind of action, but this path of least resistance becomes important. Only take the right amount of required action. First, I could just let it go. I could try that. I just can't get it out of my mind. I can't get it. What she said, I can't get it out of my mind. I understand, because you have the habitual tendency of rolling that crap around in mind all the time. That's where right effort comes in. It's not the effort to get something straightened out. It's the effort to let something be. And we can start with little things that don't matter. Not like my job is on the line. I got to straighten this out because that's not right. My job is on the line. You got to start with little things. Little things. You know how sometimes we can hear something and we can know that it's true. We know, oh, we so know it's true. But yeah, when you say it, we get mad, you know. And we just can't laugh at it. I said, that is so true. Guilty as charged. I'm working on that. You know, that's it. Somebody said something to me one day, and they said, somebody was talking about my students, and another teacher came and said, well, your students, a lot of your students have issues too. I said, I know, because their teacher has issues too. So I certainly expect them to have some, you know, and that was the end of it. When she tried to say, like, you have some bad students, yeah, they have a bad teacher too. No, but we all do the best we can with the understanding that we have. And that was the end. But I could have thought about that. What was she trying to say actually? You know, because my mind could easily go in that direction. It's groomed for that. I'm a product of the world. It's groomed for that. But I've been given a practice to do to counter that habitual tendency. What's your habitual tendency? What's your go-to place? For your feelings to be hurt all the time when somebody says something, to want to fight and defend all the time. What is your go-to place? That's all I'm asking you. The place you've always gone to. And does it take you to a place of greater abiding peace or not? And if it hasn't taken you there, don't be trying to take other people. But if it has taken you there, to where the qualities of peace and love and harmony, understanding, second chances, and it could be true, can be found, then take somebody with you. And if you're the one being taken, stop going. If you don't see those qualities in the person that you're following, stop following them and look for another exemplar of the qualities that you really want to cultivate in your life. It's going to take work. And sometimes we have to just come to a full stop and go in a different direction. But he says, if you have right view, then feeling will just be feeling. You know, the world has its conventions, its teaching. The world teaches us something. Mhm. But when we reach the mind of awakening, we start to see how false the teachings of the world are. But as long as we think those teachings are true and will take us to our goal, we will continue to walk in them. So this is about knowing one's own mind and having one's own great aspiration, right? Doesn't mean we don't have feelings. We do. But we come to a different understanding of the who, not the what. It's of the self, not the feeling. So I can have a good feeling, I can have a bad feeling. You know? And I'm beginning to get to the place that I can say, it's just a feeling. If I hang around with it for a few more minutes, it'll change into another feeling. You know, when somebody does something to you and you mad, you so 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 mad. And then after a while, you know, life is going on. That happened 5 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, an hour ago. You're so mad, you're so mad, you're so mad. There's something else is happening. And now that madness, that anger is dissipating. Like, wait, I'm not through with being mad with them yet. And you go back to that and you got to rev it all up so I can be so mad, I can be so mad, I can be so mad. If it starts to leave and I don't want it to leave, I'll call somebody and start talking with them so I can bring it back. I mean, it will go on its own. We can't even stop it from going. But we'll do everything to keep it there. But we'll start letting feelings be feelings. Good feeling, bad feeling, no feeling. And we'll be able to handle then everything that comes in our life. But we do more than handle it. No, we can be present with it. And because we're not using so much of our energy on processing and regurgitating what was said and what was done, we free up more energy and more capacity to understand the heart of the one who did it, the heart of the one who spoke it, the heart of the one whose view was that corrupted or that warped, that could even conceive of some things. And one starts to know how deeply that one must be suffering. And then when one is considering others as oneself, you know how you feel when you feel bad. You know? And then you start having a genuine compassion for the other. And that's how the notion of an enemy dissolves. And as that notion of enemy dissolves, then you become available for use, fit for use. We want to be available for use and we want to be used, but mostly we're not fit. We haven't done what's needed to be done to have the power wielding compassion. You know, it's just not just compassion, but it is compassion and power. It's a power wielding capacity to make a difference in the world. I don't know about you, but I'm working on getting qualified for that. That's my purpose, not because I want more things, but because I want to be qualified to bring forth out of my being a solution to the greed, the hatred, and the delusion that is in this world. And I'm not kidding myself. I know myself. And I know that there's some things in me that have to change. And I'm willing to look at those things in me. And that is the beginning point of our power. It's not the report, it's the inner shift, considering others like myself. So I have to let go of the hatred that I have for what I don't like. I even have to let go of the hatred that I have when I see others abuse others and harm others. Because hate is hate, whether it's in them or whether it's in me. It is of the same kind. So I have to work on the hatred that I harbor. A no can be a no without hatred. But once a no becomes tainted with hatred, then all the ingredients there for cruelty, self-serving, self-seeking. So we have preliminary work that we have to do, and we better get to getting. And doing the hard things. Pick up a book. Sit and contemplate. Go to the houses of worship and hear what the sages of your own tradition have to say. And if they're not speaking in these ways, go to another place. And don't stop seeking until you find that which brings you a certain amount of peace in your own heart. Now, peace is like love in the sense that when you love someone, it has a certain reality that no amount of words can describe. You can try to tell me about how much you love so-and-so, but I will never understand, not in reality, the degree of that love. It's just, you can just give me words, you can give me 5 words for it, you can give me 20 words for it. I will never understand the degree of that love. But that doesn't mean that you don't experience it. And that becomes your power and capacity to relate to that person that you love in a very transformative way. So let's not get caught up on words, too many words, but let's cultivate the heart and the mind that allows us to surrender the selfishness or the self-fullness that we have, that we can consider every man our brother, and that we can be available when others are losing their mind, that we can remain steady, without bias, available to give the life that we have in ourselves to another. That's going to be our challenge. Otherwise, we'll all be bearing arms. I mean, these kind of needs. But we ourselves are the solution. I believe that I am. Even when I'm feeling in a certain way, I know when I'm in my feelings. And I know to go somewhere and sit down and get that under control, because it doesn't even line up with what I believe is true or has power. And I'm going to separate myself from those that would rabble rouse, because I'm working. I'm working on me. And it can show up when it needs to. I remember the night that me and Busita went over because this really big guy was coming after Bill. And yeah, yeah, yeah. And
He almost got self-killed. I mean, I really, he came out with a knife
yeah,
and
it's true.
threw me out of the house. And I went back in, put my Kevlar jacket on, and it looked like a football uniform. And I had it. And pulled up, stopped it. Which I was, wow. I usually eliminate everything. I off football. I mean, things like that. I pulverized.
Yeah, but me and little Busita, me and Busita went there, and we staved off this great big man. You know, because he didn't look like anything to me. What he was doing, you cannot do this. That was just it, and it shut him down. Wasn't it? I did something, Pannavati or Busita. We just went and our own sense of fearlessness and love for the man. I just put my arms couldn't even go around this man. He was so big and he's charging. And I just ran and put on, you can't do this. I said, you can't do this. And the next thing I knew, the guy was like blubbering like a baby, you know? And I mean, but I really saw him. I really felt him, you know? I'm telling you that we have tools that will work on their own when we get ourselves out of the way. And they are mighty and they're powerful to the pulling down of strongholds in people's lives. I loved that man as much as I love Bill. I don't have to know you. And I was trying to keep him from himself, keep him from destroying himself based on his own anger. That's all. And so I want to learn this way.
What a rap.
I want to do things this way because I have seen the power of it. Ahimsa is our way. Harmlessness. Find out what that means. This is a life of surrender. Surrender is kind of like a dirty word. Don't think of it as a dirty word. It is abandoning that which is weak for that which is mighty.
I surrender the mind that's attached to a self. I release all illusions that I have held, aware of the emptiness as ignorance melts. I surrender it all. I surrender surrender all dissatisfaction. I surrender such thoughts, speech, and action. I surrender all habitual reactions. I surrender it all. May the Bodhi that has not yet arisen arise, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen never diminish, but grow evermore and more. May I inhabit the mind stream of the holy ones. May I inhabit the mind stream of the holy ones. All conditioned phenomena are like a dream, like a dream. A bubble, a shadow, a flash of lightning. I surrender all my fixed mental notions, the grasping and clinging brought on by emotions, clearing out all the pollution of the three poisons. I surrender it all. I surrender all. I surrender all. Shedding so the many layers. I surrender all. May the Bodhi that has not yet arisen arise, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen never diminish, but grow evermore and more. May I inhabit the mind stream of the holy ones. May I inhabit the mind stream of the holy ones.
Thank you for coming. May you abide in the peace and the happiness and the glorious luminosity of the holy ones.